I just want to talk for a little bit about something in law which is extremely important, and that is our professional obligations and our responsibilities. Every legal system in the world has requirements on lawyers to do things in accordance with rules and regulations. And there's a really strong reason for that. And the reason is that people come to us and they put their entire trust and faith in you. It's like when you go to the doctor, you tell the doctor everything, but you don't expect the doctor to tell everyone about that, right? So with lawyers, it's the same thing. We have really serious obligations to respect the confidentiality and to always work in our client's best interests. And in English, we talk about this word privilege, which means that a document is kept confidential. So you have a privileged letter with your client or a privileged discussion with someone else. And sometimes we forget in law what that actually means. Like, sure, it means that you can say something in private and no one will repeat it. But actually it means that lawyers are privileged to have that power, because other people in society don't get to have secret conversations. They can't just write a letter and then the government cannot demand it. Lawyers, we can do that because we have this privilege to maintain confidential communications with our clients. And so it's really important to remember these roles and responsibilities for us. And so in the refugee legal aid system, this is something we started to discuss, because a lot of us are working in jurisdictions and areas where we're not qualified lawyers. So we're not bound by those obligations that we are normally bound by. So for example, when I moved to Egypt, I'm not an Egyptian lawyer, I'm a New Zealand lawyer. So I have obligations in New Zealand as a lawyer, but nothing in Egypt. So how do we remedy that? How do we make sure that we're doing our work professionally and responsibly? And the decision we came up with as a group of legal aid lawyers was to devise a code. And this code is called the Nairobi Code because we signed it off in Nairobi in 2007 in February. And the Nairobi Code basically reflects the normal sort of obligations in different jurisdictions around the world. The main sort of areas that I'd like to bring up, which I think are important, is there's a duty to act with integrity, to make sure that everything you do with your client and with other stakeholders, you're doing with integrity at your core. So there's no fraudulent actions, there's no sneaky sort of maneuvers. You have to be a professional and consistent actor. And then of course the core responsibility of confidentiality. This is essential to our work as lawyers and as legal representatives in different jurisdictions. And there are other sort of normal things that you would expect in a code like this: the duty to act with diligence, the duty to avoid conflicts of interest, and the duty to avoid exploitation. And this is very important in the refugee context, because refugees need your advice and they need your help. And for lawyers and other professionals to exploit them is simply is not done. And so we wanted to make that very clear in the Nairobi Code. And also the Nairobi Code also refers to, in the annexes, we have a model for what should be a legal representative in foreign jurisdictions. So we describe the sort of experience, the sort of training that someone would need. And in the second annex, we have a complaint mechanism where refugees have a complaint against a representative, and there's a process that organisations must adhere to. So I think the Nairobi Code is so important for us when we're doing this work all around the world, because if someone comes to you and says, how can you do this professionally? You're not a registered lawyer in, for example, Malaysia. My answer is the Nairobi Code. Read the Nairobi Code. That shows my obligations. And I show it to my clients so that they know that I'm professional, doing a job for them, but also in adherence to my obligations and responsibilities.